Hi, everybody. This is Bryan Michael Stoller from Hollywood, California, and I am here to do an interview for Red. I'm proud to be a guest talking about my experience with Michael Jackson and my movies, and I hope you enjoy it. And Michael he loved movies more than he loved music, he said. He said he would put the whole music thing behind him just to make movies. And I go, I'm sorry, but who's calling? He goes, oh, it's Michael Jackson. Let's see if we can find some material and you can direct it well enough so that you can earn an Oscar instead of buy one next time. I asked Michael that once. I said, Michael, are you happy? He turned to me one day and he said I was like his only friend because all his celebrity friends were afraid to associate with him.
Bryan Michael Stoller, you are an incredible film director and you have such an interesting story because you became friends with the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. So let's go right back to the beginning. Can you share how that friendship first began? What do you think kind of bonded you both?
Well, back in the 80s, I did a comedy short. It was a spoof on Michael's Pepsi commercial. And and I hired a little boy that was 4 years old, and his name was Brandon Adams. And I mocked the commercial, but I did it in a fun way where the little boy shakes up the canned drink. And I used a Michael Jackson lookalike. It was E. Casanova at the time. And then he turns around, grabs the drink, and it explodes in his face. And they drag him back into the limo. And Michael saw it, and it was airing on ABC Network, and he saw it, and he's got a great sense of humor. And so he called the network, and they gave him my phone number. So one day I get a call, and I answer the phone. I go, hello, and I just hear a voice, very soft voice, go, hi, is this Bryan? And I said, yes. And he goes, how are you? I go, fine. Like, who is this?
Yeah.
Uh, and I go, I'm sorry, but who's calling? He goes, oh, it's Michael Jackson. And I thought it was one of my friends pranking me. So I played along and we're talking, and he said, I saw your spoof, the parody, and it's very funny, and I'd like to get a copy and meet you and all that. So I said, okay, yeah, sure, sure. And coincidentally, I was living in Sherman Oaks, and Michael was living on Havenhurst in Encino, which was literally like a mile and a half away from where I was living. So I
Wow.
figured, well, doesn't hurt. I'll make them a copy and I'll go to the house. And if if it's a prank, they'll tell me to leave. So I made a 60 millimeter copy for him. He gave me the address. Everybody knew where he lived at the time. This is just before he moved to Neverland.
Yeah.
And so I go to the house and I go to the driveway, and there's the big gates and there's a speaker, and they go, yes, can we help you? And I go, yes, it's Bryan Michael Stoller. Michael called me. He wanted me to bring him a copy of my comedy spoof, and he wanted to meet me. And they go, and I didn't hear anything. I just hear click, and I'm waiting. And then nobody told me to leave or nothing. And then about 3 minutes later, all of a sudden the gates opened. I drove in, and there was Michael in the driveway by the front door, and that's how our friendship started.
Wow. So it was that commercial that bonded you both.
Yeah, and then he ended up hiring Brandon Adams to star in Moonwalker.
Right.
Uh, and it all came as a result of my comedy spoof. And
Yeah.
then Brandon went on to have his own career as an actor. He was in the Sandlot Gang movie, and he did a whole bunch of other things. So I can say I discovered Brandon at 4 years old, and then Michael Jackson, plucked him out of my thing, and got him going.
Wow. That's crazy. And I love that on the phone. Oh, it's Michael Jackson. As if it's nothing, you know?
Right, right. And he didn't even like introduce him. He didn't say, hi, this is Michael Jackson calling.
Yeah.
He just said, hi, is this Bryan? Yes, hi, how are you? It's like, okay, who is this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were you a
yeah.
fan before then? Like, what were your kind of perceptions of him?
Yes, I was always a fan of Michael, and I was always like trying to imitate his. One of my favorite songs was "She's Out of Your Life," so I used to always say, "She's out of your life," you know, or out of my life. And I think just like the average person growing up in the 80s and 90s,
Mm,
um, was a big fan of Michael. I mean, he was just a big part of everybody's life in a sense, you know.
mm,
Um, every time he came on TV, or every time a new Michael Jackson song came out, or when he first did the moonwalk, he was just a part of, you know, world. I was going to say American culture, but he was a part of world culture.
yeah, globally.
Um, and so I always dreamed of being friends with him, but never thought it was, it would be a reality. I think a lot of people
Yes.
dream of being friends with Michael Jackson. Um, it was kind of like I used to read the Richie Rich comic books, and I always, wished I had a friend like Richie Rich, and I ended up having that because that's what Michael was. He was like Richie Rich, the poor little rich kid.
Yeah, yeah. That's insane. And
Yeah.
I saw an interview you did back in 1984 where you joked that you weren't gonna send Michael the commercial because you didn't have enough money to be sued yet. But that turned out to be, the opposite.
Some of the security guards saw the film. They told me I should get a copy to him. I'm going to wait a little bit, though, because I don't have enough money to be sued yet.
And I was just joking. I thought, I didn't know if he'd like it or not, but
Yeah,
Michael had a great sense of humor, dry sense of humor. And it was done in good taste too. It wasn't like
yeah.
making fun of him. It was like a funny accident happened, and this was the reaction. Yeah.
So, as you got to know Michael better and sort of bonded over this love for films, what was his taste in films like, and how did that influence the projects you and him wanted to direct or write the music for?
Well, Michael was brilliant when it came to, understanding and studying movies.
Mm,
And most people know he had his own movie theater. It was like a 50-seat movie theater, and the big screen, and he had his own projectionist who I believe lived on the property, had a house on the property,
wow.
so that whenever Michael wanted to see a movie, he just call over to the house, and the projectionist was always on call. And Michael loved to study movies, and he had such a good eye, and we would sit and study films, and he would point out, the camera movement, the use of music, the acting, the whole thing. And we used to watch movies on DVDs as well. Um, one of them was The Devil's Backbone. It was a movie that Michael showed me, and a lot of serious movies too.
Yeah,
I mean, he loved family movies, but he really loved to study serious movies. And we were watching The Devil's Backbone on DVD, and he had it in a DVD player that had a built-in um, LCD screen. And we were watching the movie, and after the movie, he said to me, I'll give you the DVD, and I want you to study the movie. I said, okay. So he unplugged the DVD player with the monitor, and he hands me the DVD player with the DVD in the player still. And I go, well, you don't, you can give me the DVD. You don't have to give me the whole player. He goes, no,
yeah.
this is a gift. You can have this. So, well, I actually have this LCD, player, DVD player with the DVD still in it. It's a gift from Michael.
Wow.
So instead of him giving me the DVD, he gave me the player with the DVD.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, one of his favorite movies was To Kill a Mockingbird. He really loved that movie too. So he loved a lot of movies with serious overtones and messages in them.
Mm,
Um, but it was really fascinating to sit with him and have him critique. And you could tell that, he was brilliant when it came to doing that. So
yeah. So did that kind of carry through to the films that you guys wanted to create together? Were those kind of more serious pieces?
yeah, he wanted to do, he had read a book called They Cage the Animals at Night, and it was written by a gentleman by the name of Jennings Michael Burch. And Michael gave me the book, and he said, this is a book that he could really relate to and understand. It was all about a child, 8, 9 years old, growing up in the 40s and 50s, as a, you know, an orphan pretty much. His mother was sick and in the hospital, so he went from orphanage to orphanage. And Michael felt like he was an orphan because he was going from hotel to hotel, touring and the whole
Yeah.
thing. And he didn't have a home life and didn't have his mother with him all the time. Um, and he told me, he said, we should see about maybe getting the rights to the book. And so I contacted the author and offered to option the book. And I didn't tell him right off the bat that Michael was involved because I didn't want the author to think, oh, okay, you can option it for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I did the Hollywood way, and I said, I'll option the book from you for $1. And then if and when the movie gets made, then we'll work out a salary and we'll work an agreement. You'll get 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then if the movie gets made, you'll get royalties, etc. So he agreed to it. And then afterwards, eventually I told him, I said, by the way, I said, there was a famous person involved. And I said, that first famous person is Michael Jackson. And Jennings was blown away because he was a big fan. He and his family were big fans of Michael's.
Hmm.
And so I wrote the screenplay, and we actually optioned it to Mel Gibson and his company, Icon Productions. And Mel's company wanted to produce it with Michael and I producing and directing, and myself writing the screenplay. So I also had an idea, and I said, Michael, Jennings is up in his 60s, and his health isn't great. Why don't we fly him out to Neverland from New York and have him stay at Neverland for a few days, and I will sit you down with Jennings and have you interview him. And Michael had never been in that situation where he was interviewing somebody. It's
Yeah.
always somebody interviewing Michael. And
Tables have
Michael liked
turned.
the
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, yeah. So we flew Jennings out to Neverland and we documented the whole thing. I documented the whole thing on video, and I sat him down with Jennings down with Michael in Michael's library in the main house. And I've got about 2 hours of footage of Michael interviewing Jennings on the
Wow.
book. And we had planned on using that for the DVD bonus material. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, the movie didn't get made because Michael passed away and the project was put on hold. Um, but one day I'm trying to reach Prince. I haven't been able to reach the kids, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to reach Prince to see if he wants to resurrect it with me and have him direct it with me, co-direct it.
Yeah.
So maybe Prince will see this. But Michael always wanted me to be in the children's lives if something ever happened to him. He told me that. But,
Wow.
his people are very protective of him, and I'm not
Yeah.
very good at getting through those gates.
No, of
So,
course. Yeah. No, that'd
so
be amazing though. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
So that sounds completely different to like I've heard rumors that Michael wanted to be a part of like Spider-Man and Willy Wonka and things. So that sounds like a completely different type of film.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of Michael's fans aren't aware that Michael also did a small part in one of my movies,
Yeah.
which is a really silly, silly movie. It's actually called Miss Castaway and the Island Girls in the United States, and then we changed the name for overseas to Silly Movie 2. There was no Silly Movie 1. That's part of the silliness. Um,
Of
and
course.
And Michael did it more as a favor to me because it was a very low budget movie, very silly comedy. It's for people that like that kind of wacky, silly humor. Um, and Michael, he's got a maybe 5 or 6 minute part in the film, and it's spoofing his role, his small part in Men in Black 2,
Mm.
where he wanted to be an agent, and they wouldn't let him be an agent, and they hang up on him and all that. So in Miss Castaway, he actually is Agent MJ, um, but he keeps going out of character because everybody knows it's really Michael Jackson. It's not Agent
Yeah.
MJ. And one of the characters played by Charlie Schlatter, he breaks character. He goes, "I've bought all your albums," and Michael breaks character and he goes, "God bless you." So it's really fun.
Yeah.
I just posted it. I just started on Instagram, literally like a week ago, and I put some of the scenes up there, and it's got like 2 million views already. Um, and also, ironically, I am not very good at social media, and Fabio Jackson, who a lot of people follow on Instagram, they follow him on Instagram. He's teaching me about how to use Instagram. So, he says,
Perfect.
you gotta post. So,
Yeah.
um, and do you guys get Tubi? Tubi it's Tubi.com.
Yeah, I've heard
Um,
of it. I don't know if you can access it from the UK or not, but no, I've
yeah,
definitely heard of it. So,
if you can, Miss Castaway is streaming free on Tubi,
yeah.
right? And it's got all the major studio movies. It just has commercials and it's free. So if people do get Tubi or Tubi.com, they should check out the movie. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's I've been watching it the past few days and it is fantastic. And I'm just curious what Michael thought of it. Did he ever watch it all the way through?
Yeah, he did. And he used to joke. He actually gave me a couple of the funny lines where, they're on Noah's Ark for 40 days and 40 nights, and Michael said something about, well, they're going to need a lot of toilet paper, you know. And Michael got a kick out of it. I think he liked playing the part, and he liked the silliness of it,
Yeah.
and he liked the fact that Mike, I brought my I brought the studio to Michael. Like I
Mm.
brought the camera and the equipment and everything to him, to Neverland, so he didn't have to leave. Because normally, I knew that if I had a studio and rented a studio and had him come to me, it would have to be the bodyguards and the nannies, and the
Yeah.
kids would have to come, and the limo and the travel and the food and the security, and it would have been ridiculous. So I just brought
Yeah.
everything to Neverland, and it was easy and great. And we just spent an afternoon doing it, having fun.
Yeah. It's incredible to think that Michael, he'd achieved such a fulfilling career in music and he was still pursuing all these other ventures. Like, I wonder if he was ever, like, truly satisfied?
I asked Michael that once. I said, Michael, are you happy? And he actually said, I'm happy, but I'm never satisfied. So it's interesting that you should say that.
Right.
And I thought I saw that in him. He was a perfectionist, and there's a lot of things he
Mm.
didn't do because he wasn't ready. It wasn't perfect enough. And unfortunately, that kept him from doing so many other things because there were so many things he wanted to do, but he was waiting for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I knew I just had to grab Michael when I wanted him for the part, just do it because if he had too much to think about it, it's like, well, let's wait until it's the perfect time. And really, there isn't the perfect time.
Yeah.
Rarely is it the perfect time. But yeah, he was a perfectionist. And that held him back from doing a lot of things.
Yeah. It sounds like you both kind of had quite raw, honest, conversations though.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had completely different backgrounds, but we had a lot in common with how we viewed life and our views on. We both really had a powerful view of the power of the mind.
Mm.
Believing in the universe that if you're positive, you attract positive vibes. If you believe you can do something, you can do something. And it's nothing fanatical. It's nothing um, fake or it's really, even Shakespeare said, you know, if you think you can, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's very true. Like my dad said, um, we progress through strength, not through weakness. And so if you power through and you believe something, other people will believe it. So it's all about the power of the mind, and that
mm,
really is probably the basis on Michael's success.
mm,
Um, and Michael was very humble. He never took credit, solely for himself. He said, God gave me this talent. Whenever people said he was talented, he said, God gave me this talent, and
yeah,
I'm using it, it's through God. So he was always very humble about that. and he was always very quiet and very shy in person. Like with me, he clowned around, and like when you're with friends, you're
Yeah.
not shy. Um, but when he got on stage, he became a superhero, you
Hmm.
know. So, but he was very humble, very sincere, and so we were very similar in that way. We had a very similar sense of humor, similar in the beliefs about the power of the mind. And he meditated and did all that stuff. Um, and he liked the fact that I grew up in Canada and I had my own TV show in Canada called Film Fun, showing kids how to make their own Super 8 movies.
Yeah.
And he liked the fact that I kind of, that I had exposure as a celebrity as a kid, like he
Mm.
did. But, mine was, very, very mild because it was just Canada. I was a celebrity in
Right.
Canada. He was
Yeah.
a celebrity worldwide and a
Yeah.
superstar. I was just some, dorky, nerdy kid showing kids how to make Super 8 movies. Um, and Michael just he loved movies more than he loved music, he said, you know.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He said he would put the whole music thing behind him just to make movies, and that's why his music videos were like miniature movies telling
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. So did it kind of, when you were just sort of, there at Neverland with him, did it feel like you were friends with this superstar? Or when it was just you guys, was that when Michael was humble and quiet and, it felt more normal? If that makes sense?
Well, when I first met him, it was yeah, I'm meeting a superstar, and I was sitting in the library, like I got to the gate, and got into the house, and they sat me down in the library, and I waited for him, and it was probably maybe 20 minutes, and there were these double doors in the library, and all of a sudden the double doors opened up, and there walks Michael, in his pajamas and his slippers, very casual, and he
Yeah.
walks in and very no trumpets, no, big
Yeah.
music, but it still had the effect of here's a superstar,
Hmm.
but very humble. And he came in and he sat down. And as soon as he sat down, it was like any nervousness, you know, just went away. And it was like I'm in the presence of somebody very magical. And we hit it off like immediately. Like, it was almost like we could feel each other's auras or something. You know how
Yeah.
you meet somebody and it just feels normal.
Yeah.
And I think he was excited to meet me too, which kind of was exciting to me. And I could tell that he was feeding off my excitement,
Yeah.
and I was feeding off his excitement. And we spent the whole day together. He was showing me things. Um, he was developing like a Neverland park, like Disneyland, and he was showing me the drawings and the outlines for it. He showed me a 747 plane design that he had an actual model where he was going to buy a 747, take out all the seats and make it into like, like almost like a home in the air. And he was showing me all kinds of things. He was going to do a Neverland channel, TV channel. Um,
Wow.
he just seemed so excited to talk to me about it because he
Yeah.
could see that I understood his vision and my excitement, for it. Um, so it was interesting. It's like we had an immediate connection.
Yeah.
Um, so it went from a superstar to a magical friend, to kind of that Richie Rich friend that I always dreamed about as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just like a normal friend who just was magical and just happened to live in his own park, like like Disneyland.
Yeah. Yeah. What was Neverland like?
Well, it kind of was like Disneyland, but there was nobody there except you. So,
Quite
um,
nice then.
yeah, I mean, there was always music playing from the trees. There were speakers in the trees, and it was always like soundtracks from Disney movies
Mm.
or, things like that. And it was always peaceful and magical. And there were always like lights, like Christmas lights all year round. So it was just, it was magical. It was peaceful. Um, and there were golf carts that you could have your own golf cart every time I was there. So I would drive my little golf cart around, and sometimes I would drive Michael around or he would drive me around. There was a zoo and I would go visit the animals and feed some of the animals. There was a movie theater, and if you wanted to watch a movie, you just call the projectionist, say, "Hey, do you have this movie?" And if he didn't have it, he'd get it. And the studios would lend movies to Michael, because of his relationship with the studios.
Yeah,
Uh, so it was just very surreal and very magical, very surreal and magical time in
yeah.
my life. I miss Michael and I miss that phase of my
Hmm.
life a lot.
I bet.
Yeah.
Did you ever witness his kind of humanitarian, charity work?
Oh yes, yes. Even in his theater, um, in the back of the theater, he had a glass wall, and behind that glass wall was two beds, hospital beds, that you could move up and down, and they had places for people to for medical equipment and all that stuff. And he would often have kids come from the children's hospital that were not well enough to sit up, and so they would lie in the beds and they could watch
Wow.
movies through the glass wall. Um, and I witnessed times where he had school buses show up and there were kids from schools or hospitals, and they would come out and they would play and they would have the rides and the movies and access to all of Neverland, and he would have food catered for them and everything. And Michael would come out and greet them. He would rarely spend a lot of time with them. The kids would play together, but he would come out to greet and say hello and be friendly with them. But he
Yeah,
was always very professional with them. And he would go to hospitals and he would donate so much money and you know donate so much behind the scenes. And it bothered me that he didn't get enough press on that. The press was always looking for the negative stuff.
yeah,
Right. But the kids in the world meant a lot to him. I mean, it was important to him that kids had a good world to grow up in.
yeah,
Very, very important to him. It was his priority. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And you spent a lot of time with Michael's kids as well, and you began
Yes.
mentoring both them and Michael as filmmakers, yeah?
Yes. Yes. Well, I wrote a book called Filmmaking for Dummies, and it's published worldwide, so it's in different languages. I know it's in Canadian and I know it's in UK language. No, but it was translated into Mandarin and I think Italian and Spanish. And Michael actually wrote the foreword to the second edition, and I just posted on Instagram him dictating it into the tape recorder.
Yeah,
So his actual voice dictating it, and where he talks about how much he loved movies and wanted to make movies, and how it was like almost like a drug for him. He said he'd get addicted to making movies. Um, and uh, but yeah, I started mentoring him and his kids. Um, and the kids were so young then, they were only like maybe 6 or 7. And I hope the kids remember me. I think they will. I mean, they used to call me Magic because I used to come over and do magic tricks for them. Um, but then often confused with Magic Johnson, who also would come over from
oh,
time to, the sports star,
yeah,
basketball. But and I used to do magic tricks for the kids, and I gave them dodo birds, stuffed dodo birds that I hid from my character from some of my movies, and I hid them all over Neverland. Um, and so I'm sure the kids remember me, but that was a good 20 years ago.
yeah,
And I would love to see the kids again, but like I said, I haven't been able to get through the new security and the people
yeah,
now. And I'm hoping one day the kids do reach out to me because I didn't know Biggie Blanket that well because he was still only I think a year or two when I
mhm,
lost touch. Around the time Michael passed away, and I was at the memorial, um, and that was the last time I saw the kids.
mm,
I didn't spend a lot of time with them there because they were inundated with everybody,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
just kind of sat in the background. I actually sat in front of Paris Hilton, so but. Yeah, I'd love to see the kids again. And like I said, I would love to resurrect the Cage the Animals at night
Absolutely. Yeah.
with Prince because he wants to be a director or he's becoming a director. And
Mm,
I think it would be great if he could, it would come full circle if he could just bring his dad's vision
for
to
sure.
the screen. And I know his dad would be looking down very proud. And his
Mm,
dad wanted me to be, involved with them. So we'll see. Maybe they'll see this interview.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And Michael always wanted to win an Academy Award, to win an Oscar. And he actually bought the Oscar from Gone with the Wind, and it was on a pedestal that
Yeah.
turned, in his house. And I said, Michael, let's see if we can find some material and you can direct it well enough so that you can earn an Oscar instead of buy one next time. And so he really felt the material was Oscar material. And I think
Mm,
that the book was so well written and the material was so endearing and touching that if it was directed properly, Michael could have actually been considered for it.
mm,
And that's the sad thing that he never got the chance.
yeah.
So yeah.
Before we continue with the interview, let's take a quick break to thank the sponsor of this video, Michael Jackson Market. Michael Jackson Market is a business created by passionate fans who believe that you should have access to the best quality Michael Jackson memorabilia items at the best price. They provide you with the opportunity to get rare and unique items really easily. You can head to their website www.michaeljacksonmarket.com to browse their countless items and even get your hands on one of their exclusive Michael Jackson subscription boxes. Each box is packed with a custom t-shirt and 7 or 8 other fun items. So whether it's Michael Jackson tote bags, books, cups, mini basketballs, Funko Pops, stickers, lanyards, washcloths, chocolate, and even a keychain of Bubbles the Chimp, don't forget to head to www.michaeljacksonmarket.com and use code REDJACKSON for $10 off all items over $50. Again, that's code REDJACKSON for $10 off all items over $50. Thank you to Michael Jackson Market for sponsoring Red Jackson Dance for 2025. But you guys did set up your kind of film production company, right? Called Magic Shadows. Where did the name
Yes,
come from?
that came from, well, it was a combination of Michael, being a fan of Peter Pan and the shadows in Peter Pan,
Yeah.
um, and the magic of Michael. And so I thought, movies are kind of magic shadows. And so we
Right.
we we worked on a logo, and we actually had an actual logo made. Well, we actually had the storyboard for the logo, where it had the shadows of Michael and so almost like a Tinkerbell effect with the sparkling lights and things, and
Yeah.
then the film starting to flicker and shadows on the film strip, and then it was like, a Jackson Stoller production kind of thing. And we never had it animated, but I'm going to look into seeing about now with AI and everything, maybe getting the logo animated
Yeah.
um, and talk to the company that actually designed it for us. Like we gave them the idea and then they drafted the storyboard for us. But that was, oh God, that was 20 years ago or more.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, looking back, is there like a particular funny moment or a prank or something like that with you and Michael that really just sort of stands out to you?
I mean, a lot of times when I would come to Neverland, Michael would walk in. I'd wait for him in the house or wherever, and he'd walk in and he'd go, "Hello, Mr. Stoller," and I would go, "Hello, Mr. Jackson," and we would pretend that we had just met and that we were like business, and we'd shake each other's hands, and we'd look at each other very serious for a moment, and then we both break out laughing. Um, and there was a scene when I'm directing him for Miss Castaway, and he's playing Agent MJ, and we're filming it in the house. And the train, he had a real train, like a 30, 40, 50, no, 60-year-old train that went around a real train track. And then he had a smaller one that went around a small track that the kids could also sit in. And
Yeah.
he had like an engineer that would sit there and it would go around the property and it would go, toot, toot, they'll go toot, toot. And we're filming, and in the middle of Michael's lines on camera, you would hear in the background, toot, toot. So I'd say, Michael, can we? So he'd stop and he'd laugh, and I'd laugh, and I'd say, Michael, can you get them to stop the train for, like an hour? So he'd pick up the phone and he'd go, yeah, we're filming. Can you have them stop the train going around the property for the next hour? And they'd say, okay. And he'd hang up the phone and he'd go, yeah, okay. Took care of it. And then we'd start filming again. And all of a sudden, in the middle of his lines, we'd hear toot, toot. And Michael would laugh and I would laugh. And he'd look over and it's like, okay, we gotta call them again. And that happened a couple of times.
Mm.
Another time, Michael and I were sitting in his library in the house, the library room, and his nannies brought us some little tables and soup. And so we're sitting in the library talking and we're drinking, we're eating soup
Yeah.
and we're talking. And all of a sudden, two elephants walk by the window. And I look out and I see the elephants. And I look over at Michael, and Michael's still sipping his soup as if two flies just flew by.
Yeah.
And I look at him and he looks at me and he knows, and I laugh and he laughs. And because he understands, and I go, Michael, normally when you're having soup at your house and two elephants walk by your window, like right next to the window, you react. But I see you don't react because this is normal for you. And he laughed and he said, yeah, yeah. But he got a kick out of that. And
Mm.
I mean, there were many other things, but like I'm so overwhelmed with stuff that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
kind of waiting for them to come to mind. But
Yeah. It's just a
yeah,
fun atmosphere.
yeah, yeah. But some other interesting things. Michael and I were sitting in his office connected to the house, and he was sitting there as we're talking. And there's a catalog called the Sharper Image, and it was all these electronic gadgets. And he was thumbing through it as we're talking, and he's got a Sharpie in his hand, and he's circling like every other item in the catalog. And then he closes the catalog, and then he writes on the cover of the catalog, order all these for the kids. And he hands it to his assistant. And so he ordered like probably 80% of the catalog for the kids. And
Wow.
it was pretty funny. So
Yeah,
yeah, just things like that. But yeah, a lot of great experiences, a lot of great memories, a lot of happy times.
totally.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever discuss the This Is It tour with Michael? And did you ever get the sense that sort of due to his stardom, he was still, somewhat a lonely figure?
He was a very lonely figure. He was like almost like the comic book Richie Rich, if anybody's familiar with
Mm.
that, poor little rich boy, where he had everything except true friendship or true friends. Um, and I felt that with him, and I think I'm very much, and I was very much an introvert, and we related a lot to that.
Yeah,
Um, but it was sort of like two introverts getting together and not being introverts.
yeah,
Um, and at one point, especially after the whole legal accusations and things happened, he turned to me one day and he said I was like his only friend because all his celebrity friends were afraid to associate with him because they were afraid of their reputation. And I
yeah,
said, Michael, I'm not afraid of my reputation, not that I really have anything to lose reputation wise, because I'm not a big star, but I believe in you and I know you're innocent and I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna crusade for you. And we really even grew closer then because
yeah,
uh, he could see that the friendship was true and he could see who were friends and who weren't friends. And he said a lot of his friends, were no longer, wouldn't contact him. They were afraid to.
yeah,
Um, and so, you know, I felt his isolation. Um, but I spent a lot of time at Neverland, and I he gave me my own guest room, my own guest house. That there were four guest houses right across from the main house. I mean, just a hop skip to the main house. And I stayed there many, many times. He said the room I stayed in, Elizabeth Taylor used to stay in, and Bill Clinton, the former president, stayed in, and I think Orson Welles, I think, was up there at one point, um,
Wow.
and uh, a lot of famous people had
Yeah.
stayed there. And if I wanted to order something to eat, I would just pick up the phone and call the kitchen, and anything was on they'd have a menu. I had lobster for the first time up, at Neverland. I'd never had the courage to try it, and I thought, well, I'm going to have lobster at Neverland.
Yeah.
And I did that, um and it was just a magical place. I wrote a lot of stuff. I wrote
Mm.
scripts up there. I worked on the script with Michael, together up at Neverland when I was up there. And but yeah, he created Neverland because it was a world where he could go out the front door and not be bombarded by people and not have to, you know, deal with crowds and security. And he wanted that for him and his family and his kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever discuss the This Is It tour with him then?
Ah, yes, going to that. He really didn't want to tour. He really was not, didn't have the energy to do it.
Mm.
But he felt he was obligated by his legal team. He was obligated to his fans. He didn't want to let his fans down. It was really the 50 tour dates that was really going to be hard on
Yeah.
him. Um, I was with him for the 30th anniversary. Uh, that he did. He did
Yeah.
the concert in New York at the Madison Square Garden, and he flew me out for that. And I was sitting in the crowd, well, in the audience of what 20,000, 30. How I don't remember how many. And I even spoke to him on the phone when he was late. He was still like in the limo. He wasn't even there, and they had to find a Michael Jackson lookalike to walk around with an umbrella so people thought he was actually there. Because the concert started like an hour late. Michael wasn't even on the premises. Um,
Wow.
but I was talking to him on the phone, sitting in the audience. Um, but and that was a lot of, anxiety for him. And so I knew the 50 dates were going to be, really hard on him. And he was, when the whole legal issue took a real toll on him as
Mm.
well. Um, and I think one of the reasons why they did an extensive video of it was I think that they didn't know Michael was not going to live to do the tour. They didn't know whether he was going to be healthy enough to do all of the concert tours. So that's why another reason they did behind the scenes and they did a lot of the video, because they knew at some point that this would come in really handy if he didn't finish the tour.
Mm.
They didn't know that he wasn't even going to start the tour.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew Michael was, you know, really, really depressed by what was going on, with the legal issues.
Mm.
And he was at the point where he started to not care a lot about what was going on. I saw he was starting to donate things. He was starting to put things in warehouses. And I have been through, depression before, and I could tell, and we talked about it. And if anybody could understand it, I've studied a lot of psychology, and I've known a lot of people with depression. I used to know Robin Williams, who also dealt with it. A lot of celebrities
Mm.
and famous people, and especially comedians, because comedians know how serious it is, and that's why they like to be funny because they like to cheer people up, you
Yeah.
know. And and I can totally relate to that. So I knew Michael in that way, and I even have some video of him talking about not that well, he's talking to Jennings about suicide because Jennings had contemplated suicide, and Michael had actually asked Jennings, did he ever contemplate suicide? And
Mm.
and Michael said when he was younger, I don't know if he really said that he contemplated it, but he thought about what was suicide all about, and Michael
Mm.
talked about it. So,
Wow, that's
yeah,
it's tragic, isn't it? But it's so important that you were there for him, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah. No, and then later, when things with security and everything, Michael had moved. Um, Actually, and that's another place where what was interesting, he moved to, I think it was Shadow Lane, which was ironic because it was the name of our company,
Yeah.
Magic Shadows. And it was near Beverly Hills. And he had rented that house. That's the house where he passed away. Um, and he wanted me to come and see him one day, there. And I came to see him, and the guards there wouldn't let me in. And I said, I'm here to see Michael. And they said, well, Michael's not seeing anybody. And I said, well, Michael called me and he wanted me to come see him. And he said, well, Mr. Jackson is not available right now. And they even did the same thing to his father. And I went home, and a couple of days later, I got a call from Michael, and he was like crying. And he said, how come you didn't come and see me? I said, Michael, I did, but your security staff wouldn't let me see you. And he was very upset about that. And the security and the people that were around him the final days were starting to take over his life and he didn't realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, so it was very difficult to see him. I tried to see him during This Is It. And in the middle of that, his rehearsals, I had an emergency appendectomy. My appendix almost burst.
Mm.
And I was in the hospital trying to reach him. And that was the same, it was the same night, I think, that the day after my surgery, I think it was, that he passed away. I was trying to reach him. So I wish I had gotten to him in time.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
yeah,
so sorry.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think this really shows, you were there for him when other people weren't.
yeah,
And so I think that's
yeah,
something you should really sort of cherish
yeah,
and be proud of.
yeah. And he was there for me too. I was
Yeah.
a young, struggling filmmaker. I had, made some movies and done some stuff, but he really wanted to help me too. And just for him to do a small part in my little $300,000 movie, not 300 million, but 300, the
Yeah.
price of an expensive car, a Cybertruck nowadays. Uh, and he just wanted to help me. And, uh, and it's funny because he said to me, but I have to charge you to make it legal. I said, okay, no problem. And I'm thinking, oh God, well, how much is Michael going to
Yeah, here
charge
we
me?
go.
And he said, $100. And I said, $100. He says, yes, but you just have to, pay a dollar to make it legal. And and then the $100 he just donated back to me. So, so
There we are.
yeah, pretty funny. Yeah, pretty funny. So,
So, what are your sort of current projects as a filmmaker and your future ambitions then?
uh, I just oh, you know what? Let me tell you another funny story that
Yeah.
funny thing that he did to me. Like I said, they'll keep coming up.
Yeah.
Michael wanted to we were choosing a jacket for him to wear when he played the agent MJ. And he took me to his wardrobe closet, and he's got like hundreds of jackets and wardrobes. And he said, let's pick out a jacket. And so there's two sparkly jackets. And he said, show me which one. And I said, oh, I love the blue one and the silver one. And he says, could you hand it to me? And I'm wondering, well, why is he asking me to hand it to him? Why doesn't he just pick it up?
Yeah.
So I reached over and to hand it to him, and I lifted off the rack, and I almost fell over. And he laughed because the jacket weighed about 35 pounds. And that's why he wanted me to pick up the jacket,
Yeah, yeah.
and he laughed and he says, now you know how I keep in shape because I'm dancing on stage, with 35, 40 pounds of weight and
Yeah.
sweating and all this stuff. So that was a funny gag that he played on me
Yeah. It makes you
because
think, how did
he
he do
wanted to
it?
see me like go, whoa, I didn't know it weighed that much. So, but yeah, as far as my career is concerned, my goal was similar to Michael's in the sense that I wanted to inspire people and make them happy and, um, you know, put out positive messages. So my movies are all like family oriented. A lot of I've done a lot of dog movies, um, a lot of family, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, thankfully my movies have gotten out there. I mean, they're not like major releases, but Universal released my Santa Stoller dog movie. They released it on digital and DVD, and then Paramount picked it up for, TV rights. Um, and my first dog movie, and I did another one called the Amazing Wizard of Paws. They've all gotten really good distribution. They're smaller films, so I tell people they've been successful in distribution, maybe not as successful in profits
Hmm.
uh, per se. And then there's some distributors that have made really good money on my movies, but I haven't because of the creative bookkeeping and
Yeah.
stuff. But I'm proud of my movies,
Yeah.
and it's important for me to get them out there for people to see. Even with Tubi,
Hmm.
Tubi, they pay per streaming, and it's all based on how many people see it. But you know what? If only one or two people see it and it helps change their lives, it's like, I did a movie called Undercover Angel years ago that Michael loved. And as a matter of fact, he wanted to see the 35 millimeter print in his theater. So he had me bring a 35 millimeter print and we sat and watched it. And I remember when he saw, my title come up, produced and directed by Bryan Michael Stoller. Michael goes, "Your middle name's Michael, yay!" Like he loved the fact that he was so excited that my middle name is Michael. And sometimes he would call me Michael Stoller instead of Bryan Michael Stoller. He called me Michael.
The
He'd say,
two
"Hey, Michael."
Michaels.
Yeah. And I go, "Hey, Michael, how are you, Michael?" I go, "I'm fine, Michael. How are you, Michael?" And James Earl Jones is an undercover angel. And
No way.
Was a big fan of his. And James plays a judge in the movie. And Michael loved the movie, and it did really well. Like it was one of my movies that did, when it opened, it didn't even go theatrical, I think, in the States, but it made about 6 million overseas, which is really
Wow.
good for an independent film
Yeah, yeah.
because the budget was like 500,000, so it made like 10 times its budget back. Um,
Amazing. Yeah.
and, and that one's on Amazon, um, but it's called Undercover Angel. It's a really nice family movie that I'm really, really proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll make people smile.
And it makes people smile. And I've had people say that it made them cry. And the subject matter is all about adopting a little girl. And
Mhm.
I've had people say that it changed their lives and it really was
Wow.
uplifting. And that means a lot to me when I hear that.
Yeah.
So
What
yeah,
better reward, could you
yeah,
ask for? That's
yeah,
special.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Bryan, thank you so, so much for your time. This has been such an incredible, honest conversation. I really, really appreciate it. And I know the fans will, love hearing all these stories too.
Well, Red, I hope this has helped you too. You reached out and you sent me a very good letter, and I saw some of the stuff that you've done, and so hopefully this will help you as well, and let's get you a few million, let's get you tons and tons of millions of views.
Tons and tons.
Okay?
And let's get Prince to see it so he can co-direct the film with you.
Yes,
That's the
yes,
goal.
and I recommend that if anybody else who you want to do an interview, you tell them that I said they should do it because you asked some great questions and you seem like a really nice guy.
Thank you so much. So where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with all your projects?
Yeah, well now I couldn't do this before, but now I can. I can say they can follow me on Instagram. It's under my name. It's Bryan Michael Stoller. And the spelling is just Bryan Michael, just like Michael Jackson. Stoller, Stoller. And I'm the same on YouTube, and I'm just sort of starting to get the YouTube going. But the
Yeah.
Instagram, I put some really good stuff up on Michael. And like I said, Fabio started me on that when he was visiting. to put the stuff up, and within 4 days I had 2.4 million views. And I'm brand new to Instagram, so
Yeah, that shows how special the videos are and how much
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
appetite there is to see them.
yeah. So, and and I want to bring back, remind people and keep Michael's memory alive, because everything I post, I have nothing negative to say about Michael,
Mm,
and I know he would be proud, and I just want people to, have keep his memory alive, and remember what a great person he was and how much he did for the world. Yeah.
absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Bryan. I really appreciate it, and yeah, take care, keep in touch.
Okay. Good luck. Good luck to
Thank
you.
you so much.